Friends and family of a Stowe Rocks High School graduate wrapped their arms around each other on the field where 20-year-old Ramaya Griffin attended many football games.
Police found her one-year-old child, who now no longer has her mother.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Mike Valentine joins us live from Allegheny County Police Headquarters with tonight's tribute.
5 days before Valentine, 20-year-old Ramaya Griffin was found dead from multiple gunshot wounds in her apartment on Young Ridge Drive. A tragic tale that left Pittsburgh shocked to the bones. Ramaya Griffin, a social media influencer and admired fashionista, a cheerful Instagram and YouTube sensation, and a loving mother, was brutally murdered in her home in Pittsburgh. Fondly known by her fans and family as Remy,
was known to those who loved her as Remy, a young mother described to me as a beautiful soul.
Ramaya Griffin built a community of fashion lovers and hair enthusiasts. Her videos were filled with fancy outfits, luxurious brands, and sexy outfits. She was a star and her fans loved her. What made Remy even more spectacular was her love for her new family, her child and her baby daddy, Adeline Itongwa. But her town, her family, her fans all wondered what led to her tragic death. What had gone down that night in Young Ridge Drive that had led to the horrific scene later reported by the Allegheny County Police? Who had killed Ramaya and why? Who would have hurt such a lovely soul? A young woman full of life and promise, a 20-year-old with her life literally ahead of her. A warm welcome to True Crime Family Stories. We're excited to have you join us as we delve into the darkest corners of human nature, exploring the most shocking true crime stories from around the world. To stay up to date on our latest episodes, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. We'd also love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, as we might just be covering a crime from your city or neighborhood next. Your support means a lot to us, and we appreciate your feedback in helping us create more content that resonates with our audience. It was supposed to be just another Friday, merely 5 days before Valentine, a lover's celebration, a time of joy and happiness, but Remy never lived to witness it. The call came in at around 4:30 p.m. from a concerned neighbor. Officers arrived at the scene, expecting anything but what they found. Inside the modest apartment, a young woman lay on the floor, her body motionless, the life that once filled her now gone. In the next room, just a few feet away, a baby's cry echoed through the otherwise quiet room. A child, no more than a year old, sat alone in her crib, her tiny fists gripping the edge as if expecting her mother to come and lift her into warm, safe arms. But her mother was only a few feet away, unable to answer her cries. And just like that, the world changed forever. News of Ramaya, Remy Griffin's murder, spread like wildfire through Baldwin. The entire Pittsburgh was in awe. It didn't add up. It didn't make sense that anyone would kill a woman who had so much life in her. Someone as innocent and loving as Ramaya Griffin. She wasn't just another unknown name in a tragic headline. She was a daughter, a sister, a mother, a friend, a young woman full of dreams and love, taken too soon. People couldn't understand it. They couldn't wrap their head around who would want Remy gone. At just 20 years, Remy had been a force of life, a beacon of energy that lit up every room she entered. She was known for her vibrant spirit, for the way she laughed without restraint, for the love she poured into everything she touched. She wasn't just a mother. She was a friend, a confidant. She had a passion for fashion, an eye for beauty. Wigs, braids, anything hair-related, she mastered it effortlessly. Her social media was a reflection of her personality, bright, full of color, filled with reviews of outfits and beauty trends. She was loved, truly, deeply loved. So, what truly happened that led to this tragic fate? Could she have prevented it, or was this merely a coincidence, being at the wrong place at the wrong time? While these questions remain unanswered, here is a snippet into the life of Ramaya Griffin before her demise. Before tragedy, there was love. Remy had been with Adeline Itongwa for 4 years before their relationship ended. It wasn't just any relationship, it was the kind people admired. They weren't just lovers. They were a unit, inseparable, a couple who seemed to have it all. They met through a mutual friend when they were still young adults and teenagers. Adeline Itongwa, a Kenyan who attended Pittsburgh Brass Here High School and had built his entire life in Pittsburgh. From the moment Remy met him, they connected. It was effortless. They laughed together, created social media content together, and for a while it seemed like nothing could break them. Their relationship wasn't just private, it was public, a shared experience with their followers. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Their love story spread across, and they had a dedicated YouTube channel for their contents together. Ramaya didn't hide her love. Adeline was her Mr. Right, and she showed him proudly to the world. Everything was documented. Their vacations, dinner dates, silly challenges, fancy dinners. Every moment was captured, a testament to their happiness. And finally, they cemented their joy, making a commitment that many admired and envied. Two young lovers, making a family and deciding to stay by each other. Ramaya was pregnant. Adeline seemed to be the father. Many believed this, many knew this. Adeline seemed to accept this. But this tale will question the belief that many might have had about their supposedly loving affair. The birth of their daughter was supposed to be the beginning of a new chapter, a deeper bond. But instead of the love and happiness that was expected, something changed. The perfect picture began to fade off. Adeline and Remy had lesser and lesser videos together. Their YouTube channel remained dormant. No more cute TikToks, no more vlogs of them playing pranks on each other or sharing their favorite meals. The perfect love story that had once seemed so effortless was gone. But something had happened to their perfect life. Something had made this seemingly loving couple break apart when their child needed them most. It soon became obvious to the netizens that Remy and Adeline Itongwa were no longer together. Many had their speculations. They had their thoughts. Perhaps Remy had moved on to someone better. Maybe she was growing out of love with Adeline because of her rising fame. But despite what happened behind the camera, to the world they remained connected. Remy and Adeline might have stopped the loving dinners and snuggle time in front of the ring light and tripod, but at least they remained civil. They were still present in their little girl's life. Many hoped this was some sort of co-parenting. After all, their little girl needed them together and not apart. Maybe even believed whatever the young couple were facing, they were actually working towards fixing things. But those closest to Ramaya saw something different. They noticed the change, the sudden distance between them. Remy didn't want to be with Adeline anymore. She had moved on. But no one asked questions. No one cared to find out why the young mother would rather be alone after committing to a family with Adeline Itongwa. But many can't help but question what she had seen that made her run. If perhaps they were secrets that she might have been too afraid to tell. Friday, 9th February, 2024. No one knew that morning would be different. That a young mother would take her last breath in the place she called home. That her child, too young to understand, would cry for her mother who would never hold her again. The investigation had only just begun. The questions were endless. But the most important one of all was still left unanswered. Who killed Ramaya Griffin? And why? Love is supposed to bring people together, right? A baby is supposed to strengthen that bond, make it unbreakable. But in the case of Ramaya Griffin and Adeline Itongwa, something changed. Why would a relationship that had survived 4 years, one that had brought a child into the world, fall apart so suddenly? so unexplainably. Their fans noticed it first. People started asking questions in the comments. They wondered where Adeline was, why they weren't seen together anymore. But Ramaya never gave a clear answer. Some said she wanted to keep things private. Others believed there was something deeper, something she didn't want to say out loud. Ramaya was becoming someone. Not just a mother, not just a girl from Pittsburgh. She was building a brand. She had always loved fashion, always had an eye for beauty. But after her daughter was born, she pushed even harder. Hair tutorials, styling tips, partnerships with small brands. Her name was starting to mean something, and maybe, just maybe, that didn't sit well with Adeline. Was it jealousy? Did he feel like he was being left behind? Or was it something more personal? Because here's the thing that is for sure. When you're with someone for years, when you've built a life together, when the whole world has watched you love each other, breaking up isn't just a private thing. It's a public loss. It's an embarrassment. And when the person you lost starts thriving without you, when they seem happier, more successful, more free, it hurts. Adeline might have been struggling with this hurt, his disgrace, and perhaps a betrayal of losing the woman of his dreams. Did this have anything to do with their baby? Her baby? Many would never understand what had led to Adeline's actions. Maybe he didn't like the way she was moving forward, the way she was glowing in a world that no longer included him. And maybe, just maybe, he wanted to make her suffer for it. But let's not forget the most heartbreaking part of this story, their daughter. A child should bring two people closer together. When you share a baby, you share a life, a responsibility. You're bonded forever, whether you like it or not. So many still wondered why Ramaya and Adeline fell apart after having their daughter. Some people say the relationship wasn't as perfect as it seemed, that behind closed doors, things were different, that there were arguments, accusations, and moments that made Ramaya's family uneasy. Her sister Mariah once said that Adeline was a shady person, leaving many to wonder if perhaps Ramaya has confided in her sister, if she had unburdened her heart about her fears. And if this had happened, did Mariah do anything to help out, or was it too late? Ramaya's death left an open wound in her family's heart. Her mother, her sister, her friends, none of them could understand it. One day she was here, full of life, full of plans for the future. The next, she was gone. And then there was Adeline. He showed up at the funeral, sat in silence, didn't speak, didn't cry, just sat there. People noticed.
Ramaya Griffin's sister tells us that suspect Adeline Atongwa actually attended Ramaya's funeral and in her view has been trying to garner sympathy for others. Ramaya's sister Mariah says that she now sees this as all some sort of cover.
I felt
A man who had shared a life with her, a man who had a child with her, a man who was grieving the mother of his daughter. He was silent, shocked, guilty. Something deeper than anyone could understand made Adeline quiet. Her family couldn't look at him the same way after that. They couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, that something wasn't adding up. And they weren't the only ones. The town wanted answers. The family wanted justice. And soon the truth was in the open. Ramaya Griffin's death shook the entire Pittsburgh community. Crime wasn't very unheard of in Baldwin, but Ramaya didn't seem like the typical victim. She didn't have a dark past. She didn't have enemies. She had no reason to be a target. She lived a quiet and peaceful life, or so everyone thought. At first, investigators kept their minds open. Many believed that this could have been a break-in, a robbery gone wrong. But there were no signs of forced entry. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was out of place except for Ramaya's body. And the murder weapon, a gun. Remy had been shot multiple times and left for dead. But as the days passed, the evidence at her home made it clear that it had to have been someone she trusted. There was no forced entry. It had to be someone who had access to her home, someone who knew exactly when to come to her, someone who wanted her dead. The police started digging, and the first red flag was Adeline's alibi. He said he wasn't there that night, that he hadn't spoken to Ramaya. He'd been out of town at the time of the murder. After all, they had broken up and moved on. But as the evidence piled up, the police had no choice. Adeline was arrested. He denied it, of course, said he had nothing to do with it, said he loved Ramaya and would never hurt her. But the evidence didn't care about his words. Contrary to his alibi, Adeline's truck was tracked with GPS at the time of the murder, and his vehicle was found outside her apartment at 12:10 a.m., hours before her murder. Despite his claims of being out of town, police investigations led to a finding that he made a 2.5-hour stop at a store right in Baldwin, and he in fact wasn't out of town. So why did Adeline Itongwa lie? If he wasn't guilty, if he truly had nothing to hide, why did he lie? The Allegheny County Police had a prime suspect. They had leads, and it all pointed to him. The timing of their breakup, the suddenness of it, and the way Adeline had changed after their daughter was born. Was there a chance that the baby, his baby, wasn't even his at all? Adeline may have discovered something devastating, and Ramaya might have admitted something that night, something that would lead to such tragic outcome. A moment of insanity from a man who couldn't hold in his own demons, a man that perhaps had been hiding the monster within so carefully, waiting for the right time to unleash, a man who could watch his own child suffer while watching her mother's dead eyes. Did Adeline truly hear her cries of his 1-year-old child and ignore them? A father loves his child above all else, his little princess and everything. Adeline should have been a protector, a savior for his child, but instead, he was a monster. Man that left a child helpless and alone for hours, while her mother held out just a few feet away. Some believe it was pure jealousy, that Adeline couldn't stand the thought of Ramaya moving on, getting famous, building a life that no longer included him. Others say it was rage, that something snapped in him that night, something that had been building for months. But it seemed deeper, like Adeline was hurt in a way that no one truly understood. And in a twisted and vile way, he decided to take revenge, to end the life of the only woman who could be a mother to his child, to make sure she never moved on without him. Because at the end of the day, there's one thing no one can deny. Ramaya Griffin was gone. Her daughter was left without a mother. And the man who once claimed to love her, he was the only one who knew the full truth. And maybe, just maybe, that truth was darker than anyone ever imagined. Ramaya Griffin's death didn't just break her family, it shattered them. She had been their light, their joy, the one who could walk into a room and make everyone laugh, no matter how bad their day had been. And now, she was gone. And the worst part was that Ramaya had been taken not by some stranger, not by some faceless danger in the night, but by the man who had once vowed to love her, the man they had trusted, the man who had once been family. A monster hiding under the cover of civility and co-parenting, waiting for the right moment to strike. And just a few days to Valentine, he decided it was time. According to the investigation, he drove to her home in Youngridge around midnight and didn't leave until a few hours later. About 13 hours after the time of her death, Ramaya was found in her own home. No one felt the weight of Ramaya's death quite like her older sister, Mariah. She and Ramaya had always been close, inseparable, really. She had been there through everything. Ramaya's first heartbreak, her first job, the birth of her daughter. And now she was left to pick up the pieces. To care for a child who would grow up without a mother, a child who would wonder why her father was behind bars and why her mother never got to see her first smile. Mariah had to step in to stand in the space where her sister should have been. At the funeral, Mariah made a promise, one she whispered under her breath as she held the tiny, confused child in her arms. "I'll take care of her for you, Ramaya." And she meant it. But there was something else Mariah couldn't shake: the betrayal. Not just the murder, as unforgivable as it was, but Mariah also couldn't forgive the fact that Adeline had been one of them. He had been at their family gatherings, their Christmas dinners. He had laughed with them, shared meals with them, enjoyed moments like they were his own family. They had trusted him. And yet he had done this. Mariah couldn't understand it. How do you kill someone you once claimed to love? How do you stand there, quiet and cold, while their family weeps? The entire town of Pittsburgh, Baldwin, was shaken by Ramaya's death. She had been well known, both in person and online, a rising influencer, someone who had used her platform to spread joy, to inspire young mothers, to document her journey. And now she was another statistic, another woman killed by the man she once trusted. People wanted answers. They wanted justice. Adeline had to pay for what he'd done. From the start, Adeline claimed innocence. He stood by his alibi even when the GPS and detectives said otherwise. Who else would have a reason to hurt Ramaya Griffin? Who would break into the young mother's apartment under the cover of darkness and murder her? Her baby daddy. The man she'd ended things with, her lover, Adeline Itongwa. The police arrested Adeline Itongwa, charged him with homicide. He was Ramaya's lover, the father of her child, the man she had once planned a future with. And now he was the man who had taken everything from her. But here's what still haunts people to this day: Adeline's silence. He never confessed. Not once. Not even after the evidence piled up. Not even after his lies collapsed. He never admitted to his actions, never gave a reason, never let the world know why. Many have wondered if Adeline felt guilt, if he felt anything at all, or this was an act of vengeance, a mindless choice to take the life she had carefully built over the years. For Mariah Griffin, it didn't matter whether he admitted it or not. She knew what he had done. And she knew he had done it not just to Ramaya, but to all of them. "He didn't just kill my sister," she said in an interview. "He wanted to hurt us all. He wanted us to suffer. He left her there with her baby crying, just so we'd know how heartless he was." And the truth is, she wasn't wrong. Why else would he have left the baby alone? The trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury didn't take long to deliberate. Adeline was found guilty, put behind bars where he belonged. But the questions still remain unanswered. Why would a man go from love to murder in the blink of an eye? Was it simply a darkness that had always been inside him, waiting for the right moment to take over? Because if there's one thing this story proves, it's that love and hate are not opposites. They are two sides of the same coin, and sometimes the people who love you the most are the ones who can hurt you the worst. Young Ridge Drive. Baldwin will never forget this tragedy. Pittsburgh will mourn the death of a bright young lady who was denied the life she worked hard for. Ramaya Griffin wasn't just a celebrity. She gave hope to the Pittsburgh community, to the countless young women who looked up to her, who loved and admired her, who wished for the life she had. For the online family, the loved ones, the admirers that had envied the life of Ramaya Griffin, it is hard to reconcile such happiness with such tragedy. It is unbelievable that Ramaya was snatched away from the world by the same man that kissed her goodnight, bought her gifts, and gave her a life many had envied. Amidst the thoughts and anger, in the midst of the rage and shock, let us ask ourselves, would a loving father leave his daughter alone for 13 hours, crying uncontrollably beside the corpse of her mother? Who would commit such tragic act so close to Valentine's Day, a day of life and affection. This could have been an act of rage, a sudden burst of uncontrollable fury, or a premeditated plan to stop Ramaya from ever finding love again. But one thing is certain. Ramaya Griffin can't tell us what happened in Young Ridge Drive, Pittsburgh that night, and as long as Adeline remains silent, there is more to their tragic story than we will ever know.
The 22-year-old Atongwa is in the Allegheny County Jail tonight pending preliminary arraignment. In addition to being charged with criminal homicide, he's also charged with endangering the welfare of a child. We're live outside Allegheny County Jail tonight. Mike Valentine, Pittsburgh's Action News.
If this chilling story sent shivers down your spine, make sure to share the video. Subscribe to the channel for more true crime stories. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to ensure you never miss a new video.